would you describe Sonatine?
ソナチネってタイトルが
The word sonatine is the certain musical terms, which is one of the piano learner's textbook. If you're a piano learner, you begin with the viol and you move on to chelny, and then you move on to the sonatine. And sonatine is a point of your decision making, whether you want to move on to the classical music more, or whether you want to turn your direction toward the jazz music or popular music. It implies that you are at the point of important and crucial decision making. And like that, this character Murakawa in Sonatine was forced himself into the position where you have to make a decision in this film.
In Sonatine, he opens up with the image of a fish on a spear. It almost seems like a piece of art or a canvas unto itself. Where did that image come from? And it was used in the poster also, and I'm just kind of curious.
あの魚は
The fish which was torn apart by spear is called a Napoleon fish, which used to live in a tremendous amount in the southern oceans of Japan. But recently, the number of this particular fish is decreasing. I just thought that it would make a very striking image if I were to have the fish with the spear. You know, the fish apparently is not for the eating, and I just thought it came across my mind all of a sudden that it would be make a striking contrast or a striking image to have the beautifully shaped, beautifully colored fish torn apart by the spear. It just hopped into my mind.
When he heard that Quentin and his Rolling Thunder company was interested in releasing Sonatine in America, what did he think of that? What was his reaction?
Sonatine, to me, is almost like a lost masterpiece. So when I heard that Quentin has found the film, I thought that he must have a good taste.
What does he think about Quentin's films?
まあ
Actually, I like the films by Quentin, but I always felt those films would have been better if I were more of an English native speaker. Then I would have understand the funniness of the dialogues in his films. But unfortunately, I have to read the subtitles to understand what the characters are saying. So it would have been better, far better, if I could speak English properly.
After making movies for so long and not having any released in the United States, how does he feel about having two released at the same time?
まあそれは日本と同じ状態で
Even in the case in Japan, it took me years to be recognized as just as a film director. So I assumed it would take longer to be recognized in America as a film director. So it was quite a nice surprise to see the two films released at almost the same time.
もうそのヨーロッパでは
It's quite interesting for me how this film is going to be fared among the US audiences. And so far, this film was like a breakthrough. European audiences pointed out to me that the film is obviously a violent film, but at the same time, maintaining the certain kind of tension throughout. It also includes the games of the child played by Yakuzas on the island. European audiences kindly gave a favorable review about this incredible combination of violence and children's game while at the same time maintaining attention. And those inconceivable combination is so good and that sort of stuff. But those are the words of other people. So.
The American audiences probably are not used to seeing a Yakuza film. Uh, what do you think the differences between an American gangster film and a Yakuza film are?
You know, even though the gangsters films depicted in American mafia movies and Yakuza's depicted in my films are, so to speak, in the same realm because they are obviously bad people. But the biggest difference is that Japanese Yakuzas in general do not hesitate to say it out loud. I mean, they put the name which is popular amongst the Japanese public as the company of Yakuza, and they do not hesitate to put the name of the building with their company's name. And that sort of things are inconceivable in American society, I believe. So that would be the typical difference.
Most of the films that you've chosen to direct, write and direct, have been Yakuza films. What is the appeal for you?
そのまあ日本では
In Japan, cops and yakuzas are the only two occupations which deals with the matter of death or violence daily. The general Japanese citizen are not allowed to carry a gun or do not bump into violent scenes in everyday life. So that's maybe the main reason that I am interested in these kinds of characters. But what bothers me always is that the actual Japanese Yakuza people are very interested in myself. That always troubles me a lot when I went into a bar or walk along the street.
Now that he does everything with his films, he writes and he directs and he stars in them, and I think he's editing them. Is there ever a conflict that he has trying to play all these different roles?
やっぱり
I don't think I feel that inner conflict when I make film because I'm getting used to play various kinds of character. I appear in TV show as a comedian, Beat Takeshi, and when I direct the film, I use the name of Takeshi Kitano. So it feels to me sometimes like I have a multi-personality. It's in my habit to play various different kinds of parts.
一番楽しいのは編集することだと
The part I enjoy the most would be the editing,
一番難しいのは役者を
and the part I find it the hardest would be the acting part,
一番楽なのは
and the easiest would be the TV shows. That's the easiest ones.
The Yakuza film has had a long history in Japan. The industry flourished, the Yakuza film flourished up until maybe like the last 15 years, and then it was on the decline. He has single-handedly revitalized the genre. Why does he think that it went away for so long, or it kind of died off for so long?
まあ昔のヤクザ映画の時は
A lot of the Yakuza films in the 50s and 60s, the actual Yakuza sell the tickets to the public and they force to buy the tickets. That's why it flourished. And in my film is not sold by Yakuza organization. That's why my film hasn't gained a certain amount of success in Japanese market until now.
新聞の
When I wrote the script of Sonatine, at the very beginning, I came up with a 4-block carton strip in Japanese papers. The first one is the image of Yakuza who happens to go to Okinawa. And the second one is the Yakuza finally arrived at the island of Okinawa. And the third one is the shootout of the machine gun. And the final one is the main character put the gun on his head and shoot. Next is fill the space between these 4 images with another images. And my way of shooting is very much spontaneous to the extent that I allowed the film to go its own way. if only the film go through the basic four visuals that I have just mentioned in between them.
あんまりその何々の
I do not have a single, a specific ideal which I would like the audience to feel or audience to interpret from the film. I rather leave the interpretation to the audience and they can draw their own pictures by watching my films. It's okay to interpret the film the way you want to because that's what entertainment is all about. And if I were to force the audience to interpret the film in a certain way, that can lead to a certain kind of fascism.